so today we're going to look at building the assembly of the air engine. By now you should have drawn all the parts or made all the parts up. To make the assembly, we're going to make 3 sub-assemblies. We're going to do a cylinder, piston assembly. We're going to do an assembly of the bearing bush and flywheel. We'll do a sub-assembly of the post, and then finally we'll put the base together and bring everything together into one assembly. It's easier to make the sub-assemblies, it's easier to get it to configure and to work afterwards. So to start with, we're going to look at the cylinder, and we'll look to how do we put the cylinder together as our first task. So we'll minimize this down. I'll go up to make an assembly from parts, and you'll see the create the assembly layout tab come up, begin assembly. So the first thing I need to do is to look for my parts. I'm going to bring in first my back plate, which is the back plate of the assembly. They're both highlight. I'm just going to double click on the back plate and bring the back plate in and drop it in position. So that's fixed in position, so I can now go on and move everything else into place. So the next part I'm going to bring in, I'm going to go and browse. I'm going to find my cylinder first. There's my cylinder. There's my cylinder. I'm just going to drop it in there. Just going to zoom out a little bit. There we are. So to put it together as an assembly, I need to use mates. Mates will constrain it and align parts for me. And so I go up to the mate tab up here. The first one I'm going to use is a concentric mate, and I'm going to align up this hole, which is the inlet exhaust hole, with this hole. And they're concentric, that means they're in line along the center line. Job done. So the next thing, click the surface there, click the surface here, and that now will align that. And it can't rotate, it can't move, it's fixed. It's fixed in line with that, it's welded, soldered in reality. So zoom out a little bit. I'm going to bring in 2 parts now. First I'm going to bring in the piston. So I'm going to bring in my piston first. There's my piston. And before I put my piston into my cylinder, I'm going to bring in and mate up the actual connecting rod, the con rod that goes between the piston and the flywheel. So drop them there. So again, I'm going to use concentric mates first. I'm going to align the hole and the rod. So there's a concentric mate. I'm going to pick inside the hole. I'm going to pick on my rod, and it'll line it up like that. And I'm going to lock the rotation, because I actually don't want the con rod, this connecting rod, to spin within the piston. And now they're aligned along the center line like that. So the next thing I'm going to do is just going to change my, there we go. That'll work for me. No, hang on. You need to make sure that you're in millimeters and grams. Mine just needs reconfiguring, so you need to check that. I'm going to use now what's called a distance mate, and my distance mate is going to be between this surface here, and if I can spin this around, and this end of the rod there. Now at the moment it's set to 25 millimeters. I'm going to change that to 5, and because I want to drive it in, I'm just going to click here, and inside it goes. And if I look like that, yeah, that's perfect. So that's in there, and it's locked, so this doesn't move, they don't rotate. So my next mate, I'm going to mate the inside of the cylinder with the outside of my piston. And if I go to an isometric view, what happens is my piston will drive up and down smoothly in there. Okay. And final thing to bring in, insert. Need to put the cap on the top. So I'm going to fetch in my what we call my cylinder cap. Drop it in position. Need to line up the circular portions, the center line. So concentric again. And then my final thing, well, actually need to go back to that concentric. Remember what I said about locking it? Lock the concentric so that the cap doesn't spin. And then I'm going to click on that surface there. Rotate it over. Click on that surface there. That's a coincidence mate, and it's done. So here's my cylinder. Now I can set limits on things if I want to do, because at the moment the piston will drive through there. Okay, the piston will drive through the cap. So one of the things I can do is I can spin it around. I'm going to right click on here, and I'm just going to hide the cylinder for now, just to make things easy to see. And what we're going to do is going to create a mate, and we're going to go to the advanced mates. Okay, and what we'll do is we'll set a limit on this. Okay, and what we'll say is it cannot get closer than 1 mil, but it can go out to the full length of the stroke if we wanted to. Now, one of the ways we're going to do that is, before we do that, we need to get some dimensions. So we're going to go to measure, and if I measure the length of this line here, it says it's 33 mil. So the maximum stroke I'm going to allow my piston to have, I'm going to say is 30 millimeters. So I'm going to go back to my mates, assembly, mate. I'm going to go back to this advanced mate. I'm going to set my limits. I'm going to say you can't come closer than 1 mil, and you can't go further away than 30 millimeters. And I need to pick my faces, sorry. So I'm going to pick this face, and I pick this face. Okay. Accept that. So what that means is this now will go to there and up to there, but it won't actually make contact. It can't go through. Okay, so we've now done that, and we've got it done. So now I need to come back and make my cylinder itself visible. Right click on my cylinder, yeah, show the component, job done. And now what we've got is a cylinder with a given stroke on it. So isometric view, need to save it. Save as, rebuild the document first, yes. I'm going to call mine cylinder assembly 2018. Save. Okay, so that's first the sub-assembly made. What we'll do is we'll have a look now at the next one. We'll have a look at how we make the crankshaft and bush assembly, and we put those together next.